Hello there, and welcome. I am so glad you are here. You have found your way to a quiet, safe space, a place created just for you, away from all the noise and all the hurry of the world. Go ahead now and allow yourself to settle in, letting your body feel the wonderful support of the surface beneath you. Let your head grow heavy and soft on your pillow, and give yourself permission to let go of the day. Every thought, every worry, every list of things to do, they can all be placed in a small box and gently pushed aside. They do not belong here in this peaceful sanctuary. Here, there is only this moment. There is only the sound of my voice and the gentle rhythm of your own breathing. Take a slow, deep breath in, feeling the air fill your lungs with a sense of calm and quiet, and as you exhale, release everything you are holding on to. Feel your shoulders drop, your jaw soften, your hands unclench. Let a wave of wonderful, heavy relaxation begin at the very tips of your toes, a warmth that soothes and softens every muscle it touches. Feel it flowing gently into the arches of your feet, up into your ankles, melting away any tension. This peaceful, warming wave continues its journey up into your calves, your shins, feeling so wonderfully heavy and relaxed. Allow it to flow into your knees and up into your thighs, a deep, profound sense of release, letting go completely. Just follow your breath now, in and out. Each breath is a gentle anchor to this present moment. Each breath is a quiet invitation to sink deeper and deeper into a state of perfect, peaceful rest. The world can wait. All of its demands and expectations have faded away. Here there is only stillness, only comfort, and the slow, unfolding journey into your own deepest sleep. Our story today begins in the deepest, darkest hour of a medieval night. It begins not in a grand hall or on a wind-swept battlefield, but in the quiet, smoky darkness of a blacksmith's forge. But the forge is not alive with fire and the ringing of hammers. It is asleep. The great stone hearth is cold, its bed of charcoal a collection of gray and black, silent shapes. The huge leather bellows, which give the fire its breath, are slumped and still, like the lungs of a slumbering giant. The air is thick with the ghosts of 1,000 days of work, the sharp, metallic scent of cold iron, the faint, acrid smell of old coal smoke, the earthy fragrance of the packed dirt floor, and the scent of the nearby forest that presses in on the small stone building. It is a place of potential energy, of immense power held in a state of deep and profound stillness. And beside the silent forge in a small, adjoining room separated by a heavy woolen blanket hanging in a doorway, the armorer himself is asleep. His name is Alaric, and he is a master of his craft, a man whose hands can turn raw, stubborn iron into something of strength and flowing beauty. He lies on a simple straw pallet, his great muscular frame rising and falling with the slow, deep rhythm of sleep. His face, illuminated by a sliver of moonlight filtering through a high, narrow window, is calm and peaceful. His hands, which are so strong and sure during the day, are relaxed at his sides. He is gathering his strength in this deep, quiet darkness, preparing for a day of immense and mind-numbingly repetitive labor. For he is not forging a sword or a helmet or a plowshare. He is undertaking a task far, far slower. He is making a shirt of mail. The first sound to break the silence is not the call of a rooster, but the whisper of the wind as it finds a crack in the stone wall, creating a low, gentle, mournful whistle. This is the only signal Alaric needs. His body, attuned to the rhythms of his work rather than the sun, begins to stir. He does not wake with a start, but drifts up from the depths of sleep slowly, like a swimmer rising to the surface of a deep, dark lake. He sits up, the straw of his pallet rustling softly, a dry, whispering sound in the immense quiet. The air in the room is cold, a damp, penetrating chill that seeps from the stone walls. He swings his legs off the pallet, his bare feet meeting the cold, hard-packed earth of the floor. For a long moment he simply sits there in the darkness, allowing the last tendrils of his dreams to fade away, his mind slowly focusing on the monumental task that awaits him. His movements are slow and deliberate as he prepares for the day. He pulls on a heavy linen tunic and thick woolen trousers, the coarse fabric a familiar weight against his skin. He does not light a candle, for he knows the layout of his forge, as well as he knows the back of his own hand. He moves from his small sleeping chamber into the main forge, his big frame a hulking shadow in the gloom. The cold in here is even deeper. He can feel the chill radiating from the great, silent anvil that sits in the center of the room like a sacred altar. This anvil is his partner in all his work, a solid, unyielding presence that has borne the force of 1,000,000 hammer blows. Alaric places a hand on its cold, smooth surface, a silent greeting, a communion with the heart of his craft. His first task is to wake the fire. He kneels before the great stone hearth, his movements practiced and economical. He clears away some of the old, spent charcoal from the day before, his hands making soft, scraping sounds. He lays a bed of dry tinderwood shavings and bits of dried moss, and then carefully arranges small, dry sticks of kindling on top. From a small pouch at his belt he takes out his flint and steel. He strikes them together once, twice, and on the third try, a shower of bright, hot sparks leaps into the darkness. One spark catches on the dry tinder, and a tiny orange ember begins to glow, fragile and precious. Alaric leans down close, his face just inches from the nascent flame, and he begins to blow. His breath is not a powerful gust, but a long, slow, steady stream of air, a gentle persuasion. Hoo-oo-oo, the sound, is a soft, low whisper, the sound of life being breathed into the darkness. The tiny ember glows brighter, turns from orange to yellow, and then with a soft whoosh, a small, eager flame springs to life, dancing and flickering, casting a warm, living light on Alaric's focused face. He continues to feed the small flame, adding larger pieces of kindling, then small chunks of charcoal. The fire grows steadily, its crackling sound a welcome disruption to the deep silence. The gentle crackle, pop, crackle, is a comforting, mesmerizing sound, a sound of warmth and promise. Let your own mind settle on that sound, the soft, gentle crackle of a newly awakened fire, a sound that has brought comfort and safety to humanity for millennia. Once the fire has a strong, stable heart, Alaric moves to the great bellows. He takes the heavy wooden handle in both hands and begins to pump. The bellows inhale with a deep, leathery groan, a sighing sound, and then exhale with a powerful rush of air directed at the heart of the fire. Groan whoosh, groan whoosh. This is the true breath of the forge, and the fire responds instantly. The flames roar to life, turning from yellow to a brilliant, almost white heat. The charcoal begins to glow with an intense, shimmering energy, and a wave of powerful, dry heat washes out into the cold room, pushing back the darkness and the chill. The rhythm of the bellows is slow and hypnotic, a deep, powerful heartbeat that now fills the space. With the fire alive and roaring, Alaric turns to his raw material. In the corner of the forge sits a pile of what is known as bloom iron. It does not look like the clean, solid bars of iron you might imagine. It is a lumpy, porous, spongy-looking mass of metal, mixed with impurities like slag and charcoal. This is the direct result of the smelting process, the first crude form of the iron. It is ugly and rough and stubborn. Before he can even think about making wire, Alaric must first purify and consolidate this raw bloom into a solid, workable bar. This is the first stage of the endless, repetitive labor. He uses a pair of long, heavy tongs to lift one of the iron blooms, its weight immense, and places it deep into the glowing, white-hot heart of the forge fire. He works the bellows again, bringing the iron up to a bright, welding heat. He watches the metal with a practiced eye, judging its temperature not by any instrument, but by its color. He waits for it to reach that perfect, brilliant, shimmering yellow-white that tells him it is soft and malleable, almost like clay. Then, with a swift, practiced movement, he removes the glowing bloom from the fire and places it upon the anvil. The moment the hot iron meets the cold anvil, a shower of bright orange sparks explodes into the air, and the work begins. He lifts his heavy blacksmith's hammer, its head a solid block of steel, and brings it down upon the glowing iron. The sound is a deafening, ringing clang that echoes through the forge, a sound of immense power and force. It is not a random beating. Each blow is deliberate, methodical. He strikes the spongy iron, and with each strike, the impurities, the molten slag, are squeezed out, spraying away as fiery sparks. He works with a steady, relentless rhythm. Clang, clang, clang. Turn, he strikes the metal, uses his tongs to turn it a quarter of a turn, and strikes it again, working his way down its length. He is not just hitting it. He is compressing it, folding it, welding it back on itself, forcing the chaotic structure of the bloom into a solid, unified bar of iron. This is a process that requires immense strength, endurance, and concentration. Let the sound of that hammer become a part of your own sleepy awareness. It is a powerful, grounding, and deeply hypnotic sound. Clang, a moment of ringing silence. Clang, a moment of ringing silence. The rhythm is slow and powerful and utterly predictable. There is nothing else to think about. There is only the sound of the hammer, the sight of the glowing iron, the shower of brilliant sparks, and the immense radiating heat from the metal. The air is thick with the smell of hot iron and burning coal. Alaric's body moves with the rhythm, his muscles working in perfect coordination, a dance of man, hammer, and fire. He is drenched in sweat, his face grim with concentration, but his mind is quiet, lost in the pure physical reality of the work. The iron cools quickly, its bright glow fading to a dull red. Alaric uses his tongs to thrust it back into the fiery heart of the forge, and works the bellows, bringing it back up to that perfect, brilliant heat. And then the process begins again, out to the anvil and the rhythmic, ringing clang of the hammer. This cycle is repeated over and over and over again. Heat, hammer, and reheat. It is a process that can take hours just to turn one single, lumpy bloom into one solid rectangular bar of workable iron. It is the definition of boring, repetitive, and back-breaking labor. And it is only the very first step in a much, much longer journey. Allow the endless, predictable cycle of this work to soothe your mind. There is no need to follow it closely. Just let the sounds and the rhythms wash over you, a powerful industrial lullaby. After what feels like an eternity, the transformation is complete. The once lumpy, porous bloom has become a solid, dense bar of dark, forged iron. It is not pretty. Its surface is covered in the dark scales of hammer scale, but it is strong, and it is pure. Alaric places the hot bar onto the dirt floor to cool, the metal hissing softly as the cool earth draws away its heat. He is only just beginning. He needs many of these bars to create enough wire for a single shirt of mail. He takes a long drink of water from a wooden bucket, the cool liquid of blessed relief. He wipes the sweat from his brow with the back of his arm, leaving a dark smudge of soot on his skin. He takes a deep breath, and then he turns back to the pile of bloom iron, reaches for his tongs, and starts the entire arduous process all over again. We will not watch every bar being forged. To do so would take many, many hours. Instead, let us drift forward in time to a point later in the day. The sun is up now, though its light struggles to penetrate the smoky gloom of the forge. Alaric has created a small pile of these dark, rectangular iron bars. They lie on the floor like sleeping reptiles, their surfaces rough and dark. Now the second stage of the work can begin, turning these thick, clumsy bars into a thin, flexible, and incredibly long piece of wire. This process is, if anything, even more tedious and repetitive than forging the bars. It is a process of stretching, of thinning, of patient, relentless effort. He begins by taking one of the bars and heating it in the forge, just as before. But this time, when he brings it to the anvil, his goal is different. He is not trying to consolidate it, but to lengthen it, to make it thinner. He uses a different hammer, one with a longer, narrower head, called a cross-peen hammer. He strikes the bar not with the flat face, but with the narrower edge, which focuses the force and causes the iron to spread out sideways, making the bar thinner and longer with each blow. The sound is slightly different, a sharper, more focused crack than the full-faced clang. He works his way down the bar, leaving a series of regular indentations, and the bar begins to visibly stretch and lengthen on the anvil. This process of heating and hammering the bar into a progressively longer and thinner rod continues for a very long time. The single, short, thick bar becomes a long, thinner rod. Then that rod is heated and hammered again, becoming a much longer, even thinner rod. It is a slow, magical-seeming transformation, turning a solid, rigid object into something that is beginning to show the first signs of flexibility. Alaric's workshop is filled with the steady, rhythmic sound of his hammer, the roar of his forge, and the hiss of hot metal meeting the quenching trough of water. It is a symphony of industrial sounds, a powerful and monotonous concert of creation. The physical effort is immense, but the process is so familiar to him that his mind is free to be quiet, to be still, and this is the state we are aiming for, a state of quiet, still observation where the rhythms of the world can pass through you without disturbance. Finally, Alaric has a very long, thin rod of iron, perhaps the thickness of a modern pencil. It is as long as he can practically make it with a hammer alone. Now comes the most tedious part of this stage, drawing the wire. Bolted to a heavy wooden workbench is a draw plate. It is a thick, flat plate of hardened steel, pierced with a series of conical holes, each one slightly smaller than the last. Alaric begins by using a file to sharpen the end of his iron rod into a long, pointed tip. The sound of the file against the iron is a harsh, grating, scraping sound. Scree, scree, scree. Another layer of repetitive, hypnotic noise. He needs this point so he can feed it through the first, largest hole on the draw plate. He heats the entire length of the rod in a specially built channel forge so that it is glowing a dull, cherry red. He takes the pointed end and threads it through the largest hole on the draw plate. On the other side, he grips the pointed tip with a huge, heavy pair of tongs that have long handles for leverage. Now he must pull. He plants his feet firmly on the dirt floor, leans his entire body weight back, and pulls with all his might. The iron rod groans in protest as it is forced through the conical steel hole. The hole scrapes and compresses the iron, making it thinner and longer as it emerges from the other side. The effort is monumental. His muscles strain, the tendons in his arms standing out like ropes. The process is slow, a few inches at a time. Scree-yee-kay goes the metal, a high-pitched, abrasive, vibrating sound as he forces it through the plate. When the entire length of the rod has been pulled through the hole, it is noticeably thinner and longer than when it started. But it is not yet wire. It is still just a thinner rod. He must repeat the process. He heats the rod again, and this time he threads the pointed end through the next smallest hole on the draw plate. And once again, he must grip it with the tongs and lean back and pull with all his immense strength. The resistance is even greater this time as more compression is happening. The screeching sound of the metal being forced through the steel hole is louder, higher pitched, screeking. It is a sound of immense friction, of metal being reshaped against its will. And so the process continues. Heat the rod. Pull it through a hole. Heat it again. Pull it through the next smallest hole. Over and over and over again. Each pass makes the wire thinner and longer. What started as a thick 3-foot bar of iron becomes a thin rod of 10 feet, then a thinner wire of 20 feet, then an even thinner wire of 50 feet or more. The work is mind-numbing. It is a test of endurance, of pure brute force applied with patience and precision. The forge is filled with the roar of the fire, the high-pitched, agonizing screech of the drawing process, and the grunts of effort from Alaric himself. But for us, listening here, safe and comfortable, these powerful repetitive sounds can become a strange and effective lullaby, a wall of sound that blocks out our own thoughts, leaving only the simple, raw, and deeply sleepy reality of this endless work. With each pass through the draw plate, the wire becomes something new. It transforms from a rigid bar into a long, flexible, and surprisingly strong strand of metal. The pile of finished wire begins to grow in the corner of the forge, long, dark coils resting on the floor. Alaric works without pause, his rhythm unwavering. The forge is a place of constant sound now. The roar of the fire, the screech of the draw plate, the clang of the hammer making adjustments. But within this cacophony there is a deep, underlying monotony, a predictability that is profoundly calming. The sounds are powerful, but they are repetitive, and in their repetition they become a kind of white noise, a wall of sound that can shield the mind from its own intrusive thoughts. You do not need to listen to every sound. You can simply let them merge into a single droning industrial hum, the sound of creation in a time long past. The sun has reached its zenith and begun its slow descent, but Alaric does not mark the time. His world is measured in the length of wire produced, in the number of bars transformed. But finally the last bar has been pulled through the smallest hole on the draw plate for the last time. A great pile of dark iron wire now lies coiled in the corner, a testament to a full day of immense physical exertion. The wire is long and thin, the perfect diameter for the rings he needs to make. But the process of drawing, of compressing and stretching the metal has made it hard and brittle. It is work-hardened. If he were to try and bend it into a tight coil now, it would be difficult and might even snap. It needs to be soft. It needs to be annealed. This next process is one of gentle, quiet, and slow transformation. It is a process of relaxation, of releasing the tension that has been forced into the very structure of the metal. Alaric lets the main forge fire die down, its roaring fury no longer needed. He uses a shovel to create a wide, shallow bed of glowing embers. Then he carefully takes the long coils of wire and arranges them in the hearth, laying them directly upon the gentle, radiant heat of the embers. He does not want to bring them to a searing, white heat, but to a soft, dull, cherry-red glow. He covers the coils with more charcoal and then simply waits. This is a slow, soaking heat, one that gently permeates the metal, allowing its crystalline structure to relax and realign. He does not use the bellows. He lets the fire breathe on its own, a slow, gentle pulse of heat. The forge grows quieter now. The roaring and screeching have ceased, replaced by the soft, gentle crackle and hiss of the cooling embers. The air is still warm, but the intense, dry heat has softened to a more comfortable, radiant warmth, like sitting before a perfect hearth fire on a cold night. Alaric sits on a low stool, his massive frame silhouetted against the glowing hearth. He is watching the metal, but his gaze is distant. He is in a state of quiet repose, his body resting after the immense labor of the day. This period of waiting is as much a part of the process as the hammering and pulling. It is a moment of stillness, a pause in the symphony of creation. And for us, it is an invitation to sink even deeper into our own state of rest, to let our own inner tensions soften and release, just like the iron in the fire. The coils glow with a soft, uniform, beautiful red light, like intricate sculptures made of embers. After a long time, Alaric judges that the metal has been heated enough, and now he does not quench the wire in water. To do so would be to harden it again. Instead, he simply lets the fire die completely. He stops feeding it charcoal and allows the embers to slowly, gradually cool down on their own. This is the slowest part of the process. The wire must cool down with the fire over a period of many hours. This slow cooling prevents new tensions from being locked into the metal, ensuring it will be as soft and malleable as possible. He will leave it overnight. He banks the embers, covers the hearth, and his work for the day is finally truly done. He retreats to his small sleeping room, his body aching with a deep and satisfying weariness, and falls into a profound, dreamless sleep, the kind of sleep that only comes after a long day of hard, meaningful labor. Let us drift forward now, past the long, silent hours of the night. Let us arrive in the forge on the next morning. The air is cold again. The hearth is nothing but a pile of soft, gray ash. Alaric reaches into the ash and pulls out the coils of wire. They are no longer dark and scaly, but covered in a soft, pale gray dust, but more importantly, they are transformed. They are now soft, pliable, and perfectly annealed. He can bend a piece of the wire easily in his strong hands. It is ready for the next stage, the creation of the thousands upon thousands of tiny rings that will form the shirt of mail. This is where the true, mind-numbing repetition begins. A repetition so deep and so endless, it is a perfect guide into the quiet fields of sleep. Alaric takes the first coil of his softened wire and moves to his workbench. Secured firmly into a hole in the bench is a metal rod, a mandrel, about the thickness of a slender branch. He takes the end of the wire and, using a pair of pliers, he bends it tightly around the mandrel. Then, with one hand guiding the wire and the other hand turning the mandrel with a simple crank, he begins to wind the wire. The sound is a constant, steady, metallic scrape, a high-pitched but not unpleasant scree-ee-ee as the iron wire is forced to bend into a tight, perfect coil around the central rod. His hand moves back and forth along the mandrel, guiding the wire so that each new loop is pressed tightly against the last, with no gaps. The process is hypnotic to watch, and even more hypnotic to listen to. The sound is continuous, a single, sustained, scraping note that fills the quiet of the morning forge. Scree-ee-ee-ee-ee. It is the sound of tension being created, but in a controlled, deliberate way. The long, straight piece of wire is becoming a long, tight, spring-like coil. He reaches the end of the wire, cuts it, and slides the finished coil off the end of the mandrel. It is a perfect, dense, heavy spring of dark iron. He places it carefully into a large wooden bowl on the floor, and then he picks up the next length of wire and begins the entire process again. The same sound, the same motion, the same result. Coil after coil after coil. The work goes on for hours. The bowl on the floor begins to fill with these identical, tightly wound coils. Alaric's mind is quiet, focused only on the task. He is not thinking about the finished shirt of mail. That goal is so distant, so abstract, it is almost meaningless. His entire world is this single task, this rhythmic winding of wire, guiding it with his hand, turning the crank, listening to the steady, unchanging screech of metal on metal. Let that sound be your focus now. Do not try to fight it. Do not try to analyze it. Just allow it to be. A constant, steady, and wonderfully boring sound. A sound that can occupy the part of your mind that likes to worry and think, leaving the rest of your mind free to drift, to float, to dream. After many hours, the great pile of wire has been transformed into an equally great pile of coils. The bowl is overflowing. The first part of this stage is done. Now comes the second part, cutting the coils into rings. Alaric takes a single coil and lays it in a shallow groove carved into a heavy block of hardwood. He takes up a sharp, hardened steel chisel in one hand and a heavy mallet in the other. He places the edge of the chisel carefully across the top of the coil, aligning it so that it will cut through only one side of each loop. He takes a breath and then brings the mallet down with a sharp, precise blow. The sound is a single, sharp, metallic clink, and in the instant after the sound, a magical thing happens. The single coil, held together by the tension of its form, is suddenly liberated. Dozens of small, individual, open-ended rings fall away from the chisel's edge, cascading into the wooden bowl with a beautiful, soft, metallic tinkle-clatter-she. It is a wonderful, satisfying sound, a sharp, loud action, followed by a soft, gentle, and complex cascade of smaller sounds. It is the sound of a single thing becoming many. He places the next coil in the groove. He aligns the chisel. He lifts the mallet. Clink. And again the soft, whispering, metallic shower of rings falling into the bowl. Tinkle, clatter, she. This is the new rhythm. A rhythm of sharp precision and gentle release. Clink. Tinkle, clatter, she. Clink. Tinkle, clatter, she. The pile of coils begins to shrink, while the pile of loose rings in the bowl grows and grows, becoming a small mountain of dark, shimmering metal. Each ring is a perfect circle, but with a small gap where the chisel has cut through. Each one is a single, humble, and almost insignificant component, but together they will form a garment of incredible strength and value. The work is so repetitive it becomes automatic. Alaric's hands perform the task without any conscious thought from his mind. This allows his mind to enter a state of deep, meditative calm. It is this state that we are trying to borrow from him, a state of thought-free, gentle activity. Let the rhythm of the cutting become your rhythm, the sharp clink and the soft, cascading tinkle. Allow the predictability of the sound to be a comfort. You know exactly what is coming next, and in that knowing your mind can let go of its need to be vigilant, its need to be in control. It can simply surrender to the gentle, monotonous flow of the work. The bowl is now full to the brim with thousands of these small, open-ended rings. They catch the light from the forge fire, which he has rekindled to warm the chilly workshop. They look like a treasure, a great hoard of dark metal coins. Alaric runs his hands through the pile of rings. The sound is another wonderful sensory experience. A loud, metallic, whispery she, like a metallic waterfall, as the thousands of rings shift and slide over one another. The feeling of the cool, smooth, heavy metal on his skin is a familiar and satisfying one. This is the fruit of his labor so far. This is the raw material for the next, and even more time-consuming, stage of the process, the weaving. Before he can weave, however, he must prepare the rings for the final stage of riveting. He takes a handful of the rings and places them on a small, flat anvil. One by one, he picks up a ring with a pair of pliers and uses a small, flat-faced hammer to slightly flatten the two ends on either side of the gap. Tap, tap. A small, precise, delicate sound. He is creating two small, flat paddles on each ring, which will later be overlapped, pierced, and riveted shut. He does this for every single ring in the massive pile, a task that will take days. The forge is filled with this new, delicate, and endlessly repetitive sound. Tap, 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 tap. It is a softer sound than the great forge hammer, a more intimate and focused sound. It is the sound of patient, meticulous preparation. And as we listen to this endless, gentle tapping, our own minds can become patient and meticulous and ready for the deep rest that is to come. The bowl, once filled with simple coils, is now a treasure chest of thousands upon thousands of identical, open-ended rings, each one with its two ends perfectly flattened, waiting. The air in the forge is still and quiet, the only sound being the gentle, rhythmic breathing of the low fire in the hearth. Alaric has spent days on this single mind-numbing task, and yet his movements show no sign of impatience. His face is a mask of calm concentration. He is a man who has made peace with the slow, deliberate passage of time, a man who understands that true craftsmanship cannot be hurried. He pulls his heavy wooden stool closer to the workbench, and the next, most intricate stage of the process is about to begin: the weaving. He does not begin by thinking of a sleeve or a collar or the great torso of the shirt. He begins with a single, humble ring. He reaches into the massive bowl with a pair of small, specialized pliers and picks one up. He holds it gently in the jaws of the tool. Then, with his other hand, he slowly and deliberately threads 4 other open rings onto the first one. 4 rings, each one making a soft, metallic click as it passes through the opening. He holds the first ring, now with 4 others dangling from it, like charms on a bracelet. Then, using a second pair of pliers, he carefully brings the 2 flattened ends of that first ring together, making sure they overlap perfectly. This is the foundation, a single closed ring holding 4 open ones, a tiny 5-ring universe. Now the true hypnotic rhythm of the weaving begins. He picks up the small, dangling cluster of mail. He lets 2 of the open rings fall on one side and 2 on the other. He then takes a new open ring from the great pile. He threads this new ring through 2 of the dangling rings from his original cluster, one from the left, one from the right. He has linked them together. But before he closes this new ring, he adds 2 more open rings from the pile onto it. Then, and only then, does he carefully close the gap on the new ring overlapping the flattened ends. He has just added 1 ring to the pattern, and in doing so has incorporated 4 others. The pattern has grown. It is now a small, intricate patch of 7 rings. This is the core of the 4-in-1 weave, the strong, flexible, and beautiful pattern that defines European mail. He repeats the process. He picks up a new open ring. He finds 2 adjacent rings on the edge of the small patch he has made, and he threads the new ring through both of them. He adds 2 more fresh rings from the pile onto his new ring. He closes the new ring. The patch grows again. It is a slow geometric expansion, a process of careful, deliberate addition. Each ring added strengthens the whole, locking its neighbors into a complex, interlocking web. The work is incredibly slow. It is a task measured not in hours, but in inches of fabric created. Alaric's huge, strong hands move with a surprising delicacy and precision. The pliers are like an extension of his own fingers, maneuvering the tiny rings with an economy of motion that speaks of a lifetime of practice. Let your mind focus on the quiet, meticulous sounds of this work, the soft jingle and clatter of the rings in the bowl as he searches for a new one, the quiet metallic scrape as he threads a ring through the pattern, the gentle click as he brings the ends together with his pliers. These are small, intimate, and deeply calming sounds. They are sounds of concentration, of creation on a miniature scale. There is no great clang of the hammer now, no roaring of the forge. There is only this quiet, focused, and endlessly repetitive sequence of small actions. Pick up a ring, thread it through 2, add 2 more, close the ring. Over and over and over again. The small patch of mail grows in his hands. It is no longer just a collection of individual rings, but a single unified fabric. He lays it down on the leather apron covering his lap. It makes a soft, heavy, metallic hissing sound as it settles, a sound like a metal snake. It is cool and heavy to the touch. He runs his fingers over its surface, feeling the texture of the thousands of interlocking loops. It is both rough and smooth at the same time. It is a fabric made of iron. He picks it up again and it drapes over his hand with a surprising fluidity, flowing almost like heavy water. It is this unique combination of strength and flexibility that makes mail such an effective form of armor. He continues his work as the day wears on. The light coming through the high, narrow window of the forge shifts from the cool gray of morning to the brighter light of midday, and then softens again into the warm gold of afternoon. Ulrich does not notice. His world has shrunk to the space right in front of him, the growing patch of mail, the great bowl of rings, and the steady, rhythmic movement of his hands. This is a state of deep, meditative focus, a state where the busy, thinking part of the mind goes quiet and the intuitive, doing part takes over. It is a state of flow that is profoundly restful, and you can borrow this state from him. You can allow your own mind to become as quiet, as focused, as free of distracting thoughts as his. Just follow the rhythm of the work. Pick up, thread, add, close. The patch of mail is no longer a patch. It has become a long, wide ribbon of interconnected rings, what an armorer would call a fathom of mail. He has been working for an entire day, and he has created a single flexible strip of this iron fabric, perhaps a foot wide and a few feet long. It represents thousands of individual rings, each one threaded and placed with perfect precision. He holds it up and it hangs from his hand like a heavy, dark, glittering waterfall. The sheer amount of labor contained within this one small piece is staggering, and he is just beginning. To make a full shirt, he will need to make many of these long ribbons, and then he will need to join them together. He lays the finished ribbon carefully on his workbench and begins the process of starting the next one. He reaches into the bowl, picks up a single open ring, and threads 4 others onto it. The foundation is laid once more. The long, slow, patient process begins anew. The sounds are the same. The motions are the same. The only thing that changes is the slow, almost imperceptible growth of the new ribbon of mail. This is the reality of the armorer's craft. It is not a craft of sudden inspiration or dramatic action. It is a craft of immense, almost unimaginable patience. It is a craft of quiet, steady, and relentless repetition. Let's sink deeper into that repetition now. Let's not even think about the ribbons of mail anymore. Let's just focus on the journey of a single ring. Imagine Aloric's hand reaching into the bowl, his fingers searching for one ring among the thousands. The cool, smooth feel of the metal. He lifts it up. It glints in the firelight. He picks it up with his pliers. He guides it towards the edge of the mail fabric. He identifies the 2 rings it needs to connect. He patiently works the open end of the new ring through the first of the existing rings, and then the second. The quiet scrape of metal on metal. Then he picks up 2 new, fresh rings from the bowl. He threads them onto the ring he is holding. He now uses his 2 pairs of pliers to bring the flattened ends of the new ring together. They overlap perfectly. The ring is now a part of the whole, indistinguishable from its neighbors, its small life's purpose fulfilled. Now imagine that same, slow, deliberate process happening again, and again, and again, thousands upon thousands of times. The sheer scale of the monotony is difficult to comprehend, and that is why it is so powerfully sleep-inducing. Your mind tries to grasp the immense number of repetitions, and in doing so, it grows tired. It recognizes the futility of trying to keep track, and so it begins to let go. It surrenders to the endless, gentle, and unchanging flow of the process. There is no story to follow. There is no puzzle to solve. There is only the quiet, steady, and beautiful creation of a complex pattern from a simple, repeated action. As Alaric works, the forge around him is a haven of peace. The fire in the hearth has been banked low, providing just enough warmth and light. It crackles softly, a gentle, comforting sound. Outside the forge, the sun has set, and the world has been painted in the deep purples and blues of twilight. The sounds of the village have faded away, replaced by the gentle chirping of evening crickets and the distant, lonely call of a night bird. The air growing cooler, carrying the scent of damp earth and wood smoke. It is a time of peace, a time of transition, a time when the world itself seems to be taking a long, slow, deep breath before settling into the stillness of the night. The second ribbon of mail is now complete. It lies on the workbench next to the first one, a perfect twin. Alaric stretches his back, a low groan escaping his lips. He stands up and walks around the forge, his legs stiff from sitting for so long. He looks at the 2 ribbons of mail shimmering in the firelight. 2 full days of patient, focused work, and he has these 2 strips of fabric. It is a pace of creation that is almost impossible for a modern mind to comprehend. But for Alaric, it is simply the way things are. It is the nature of his work, and he accepts it with a quiet, calm resignation. There is no frustration, no impatience. There is only the work. He decides to join the 2 ribbons together before he ends his day. This is a new but similar process. He lays the 2 ribbons side by side, their edges perfectly aligned. Now he will use a new set of rings to stitch them together. He takes an open ring and he passes it through 2 rings on the edge of the first ribbon, and then through the 2 corresponding rings on the edge of the second ribbon. He has linked the 2 pieces together. He then closes the ring. He repeats this all the way down the length of the 2 ribbons, stitching them together with a fresh row of rings, transforming the 2 separate pieces into one single, wider sheet of mail. The process is the same familiar rhythm. Pick up, thread, close. Pick up, thread, close. The new, wider sheet of mail is now heavy. It takes a real effort to lift. He drapes it over his leather apron, and it settles with a weighty, comforting presence. This is the beginning of the torso of the shirt. He can see the garment starting to take shape, but he knows, with a certainty born of long experience, that he is still at the very beginning of his journey. There are so many more ribbons to make, so many more seams to join. And after all of this, after the entire shirt is woven together with these open-ended rings, the true work, the most tedious work of all, will begin. The riveting. But that is a task for another day. For now, this is enough. The quiet satisfaction of a small, measurable progress is a wonderful and peaceful feeling. A feeling that we can share with him as we, too, prepare for our own well-deserved rest. The wide, heavy sheet of woven mail lies on Alaric's workbench, a dark and shimmering testament to many days of patient labor. The basic fabric is complete. The shape of a shirt is beginning to emerge. Yet in Alaric's mind, the true work has not yet begun. For every single ring in this vast fabric, all several thousand of them, is still open. The flattened ends are merely overlapped, held together by simple tension. It is a garment of potential, but not yet of true strength. To give it the integrity it needs to turn aside a sword blow, every single one of those thousands of rings must be permanently sealed shut. The time for weaving is over. The time for riveting has come. This new stage of work requires a different set of tools and a different kind of focus. The scale of the work shrinks from the overall pattern of the shirt to the microscopic detail of a single ring. Alaric clears a space on his bench and sets out his riveting tools. There is a small, heavy block of steel, its surface carved with various shallow depressions and grooves. This is his riveting anvil. He lays out several tiny hammers with small, delicate heads shaped for precise work. He has a collection of sharp, pointed steel punches. And finally he brings out a small, shallow wooden bowl. Inside this bowl is a pile of what looks like tiny metal filings or grains of sand. But they are not sand. Each one is a minuscule wedge-shaped rivet, painstakingly crafted by hammering out a piece of wire and snipping off the tiny triangular tip. There are thousands of them in the bowl, a pile of metallic dust that represents another 100 hours of tedious work. He pulls his stool up to the bench, the light from the low-burning forge fire casting a warm, focused glow on his workspace. He picks up the edge of the heavy sheet of mail and lays it on the riveting block. He takes a deep breath, letting it out slowly. This is a task that requires a stillness of body and a deep quietness of mind. Any impatience, any frustration will only lead to mistakes. He must enter that state of pure meditative flow where the world outside of this tiny, focused task simply ceases to exist. He isolates a single ring at the very edge of the fabric, one of the rings whose flattened ends are currently just resting one on top of the other. The work begins. First, he uses a pair of his finest tipped pliers to ensure the two flattened ends are perfectly aligned, one directly over the other, with no gap, a tiny, precise adjustment. Then he positions this overlapped section directly over a small hole in his riveting block. He picks up one of his sharpest, finest punches. He places the tip of the punch directly in the center of the overlapped ends and gives the top of the punch a single, sharp, confident tap with a small hammer. The sound is not a loud clang, but a high-pitched, precise tick, a sound like a pin dropping in a silent room. The sharp point of the punch has pierced through both layers of the flattened iron, creating a single, tiny, perfect hole. The second step is to insert the rivet. He leans in close, his eyes focused intently on the tiny hole he has just created. He uses a pair of delicate pliers, almost like tweezers, to pick up a single, almost microscopic rivet from the wooden bowl. This task alone requires incredible steadiness of hand. He carefully guides the tiny metal wedge towards the hole in the ring. He inserts the pointed end into the hole, and with a gentle push, the rivet slides into place, its tiny triangular head now holding the two overlapped ends of the ring together. It is a task of miniature engineering performed on a scale that is almost difficult to see. The third and final step is to secure the rivet. He lifts the ring off the piercing hole of his anvil and places it on a solid, flat section of the block. He takes up a different hammer now, one with a small, rounded or dimpled face. This is a peening hammer. He holds the ring steady with his pliers, and then brings the peening hammer down onto the small end of the rivet that is protruding through the ring. He does not strike it with force. He taps it. A series of very soft, very light, very precise taps. Tap, 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 tap. The sound is barely audible, a metallic whisper. The purpose of these taps is to spread the metal of the rivet's tip, flattening it out, creating a second head on the other side. This action locks the rivet in place permanently, sealing the ring shut so that it can never come apart. One ring is now complete. It is no longer an open loop, but a solid, sealed circle of iron, forever linked to its four neighbors. Alaric pauses for a fraction of a second, his eyes checking the work. The rivet is flush, the join is strong. It is perfect, and now he must do it again. On the very next ring, he shifts the fabric of the mail slightly on his anvil. He finds the next ring in the sequence. He uses his pliers to align the overlapped ends. He takes up his punch and hammer. Tick! He pierces the hole. He reaches into the bowl of rivets, picks one out, and carefully inserts it. He moves the ring and takes up his peening hammer. Tap, tap, tap. The second ring is complete. This is the work. This is the reality of making riveted mail. This slow, multi-step, incredibly precise process, repeated not 100 times, not 1,000 times, but tens of thousands of times to complete a single shirt. It is a task of such monumental, mind-shattering monotony that it is difficult to truly comprehend. The value of the shirt is not just in the iron from which it is made. Its true value lies in this, in the almost infinite patience and skill of the craftsman, and the thousands upon thousands of hours of life that are poured into its creation. Its value is measured in time itself, and that is why it was worth more than a farm, more than a herd of livestock, more than a small house, because it represented a year, or even more, of a master craftsman's irreplaceable life, all condensed into a single, beautiful, and functional object. Let us now sink into the rhythm of this work. Let us allow our minds to be completely hypnotized by the gentle, predictable, and endless repetition. There is no story to follow. There is only the sequence of quiet, delicate sounds. The soft jingle of the mail shifting on the bench, the precise tick of the punch, the quiet concentration as the rivet is placed, and the final, soft, whispery tap, 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 tap of the peening hammer. Let this sequence become a mantra, a lullaby of quiet industry. There is nothing else to think about. There is nothing else to do but listen to this gentle, repetitive soundscape. Alaric works on as the hours crawl by. The sun arcs across the sky outside his forge, but he does not see it. His entire world is the small 3-inch circle of mail that is illuminated by the focused light of his workspace. His eyes, strained from the intense focus on such tiny objects, begin to ache. He blinks, refocusing, and continues. His fingers, cramped from holding the tiny pliers in the same position for so long, grow stiff. He pauses, flexing his hand, shaking it out, and then he returns to the work. The pile of unriveted mail seems to mock him with its immense size, but he does not allow his mind to dwell on the scale of the task. To do so would be to invite despair. He focuses only on the next ring, and then the next, and then the next. This is the secret to such work. This is the secret to calming a restless mind. Do not think of the vast, unconquerable mountain. Think only of the next small stone you must place at your feet, and then the next, and then the next. And soon, without even realizing it, you have begun to climb. Alaric is not building a shirt of mail. He is simply closing a single ring, and then another single ring, and the shirt in its own good time will build itself. Let your own mind adopt this peaceful, focused strategy. Do not think of the whole night of sleep ahead of you. Think only of this next single peaceful breath, and then the next, and then the next, and sleep in its own good time will build itself around you. The forge is a place of deep humming quiet. The fire has been banked so low it is barely a whisper of itself, providing a gentle, radiant warmth and nothing more. Outside, the sounds of the afternoon fade into the sounds of the evening. Alaric works on, a solitary, hunched figure, lost in his sea of iron rings. The only movement is the small, precise, and endlessly repeated motion of his hands. The only sound is the tiny, delicate chorus of his tools. Tick, tap, 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 tap. Tick, tap, 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 tap. It is a sound that is so regular, so predictable, so utterly devoid of surprise, that it becomes a form of silence itself, a silence that can absorb your thoughts, a silence that can cradle your awareness as you drift gently away. He completes a small section, a square of mail perhaps the size of his hand, where every single ring is now a solid, sealed, and riveted loop. He picks up the fabric. It feels different now. It is heavier, more solid. The rings no longer jingle and whisper when they move, but have a more muted, more substantial, hissing sound. The fabric feels stronger, more unified, more protective. He has imbued it with his time, with his skill, with his incredible patience. He has turned a collection of loose, open rings into a true piece of armor. And then he lays it down, finds the next section of open-ringed mail, and begins the process again. The mountain of work is still immense, but a few small stones have been moved, and that is enough. Let the image of Alaric, the patient armorer, be your guide tonight. Let his quiet forge be your sanctuary. Let the simple, repetitive sounds of his work be your lullaby. There is no need to struggle for sleep. There is no need to fight your own thoughts. Simply turn your attention to the quiet, gentle, and endless task of closing one small ring, and then the next, and then the next. Allow the sheer, profound, and wonderful boredom of this ancient craft to be your final, gentle push into a deep, peaceful, and restorative sleep. The work will continue. The rhythm will not change. You are free to let go. You are free to drift. You are free to be at peace. The days bleed into one another, each one marked by the same patient, focused, and unchanging rhythm. The sun rises and sets outside the forge. Seasons begin to shift, but inside, time is measured differently. It is measured in the number of rings sealed shut, and the slow, steady creep of the solid, riveted fabric across the expanse of the unriveted mail. Alaric works on a figure of monumental patience. He has become a part of the forge, another tool in the process, his body a machine for the creation of this single, extraordinary garment. The pile of loose, open rings in the great wooden bowl shrinks, almost imperceptibly at first, but now, after weeks and months, it is noticeably smaller. The shirt itself, however, has grown heavy, a formidable weight on his lap, as he works on the final sections. He is no longer working on flat ribbons of mail, but on the complex three-dimensional shape of the shirt itself. He has joined the main panels of the torso and is now carefully crafting the sleeves. This requires a subtle art, a tapering of the fabric so that it follows the shape of the human arm, wider at the shoulder and narrower at the wrist. He does this by occasionally adding a ring that links not 4, but 5 or even 6 other rings, creating a small expansion, or by linking a ring to only 3 others, causing the fabric to gently contract. These are small, almost invisible adjustments, the secret geometry of his craft, but the fundamental work remains the same. Every single ring, whether part of a taper or a straight seam, must be individually pierced and peened. Tick, tap, tap, tap. The sound does not change. The rhythm does not falter. The sleeves are completed. The collar, a double thick band of mail to protect the throat, is carefully attached. The shirt is now almost a whole and recognizable thing. It lies on his workbench like the shed skin of some great metallic creature. The final task is to join the last seam, the one that runs under the arm and down the side, closing the garment forever. He drapes the shirt carefully over a wooden stand so that he can access this final open seam. He begins at the armpit, a place of complex movement that requires both strength and flexibility, and starts his familiar patient rhythm, stitching the 2 sides together, one tiny solid ring at a time. This is the final stretch of a marathon that has lasted for months. With each ring he closes now, the shirt becomes more complete, more whole. The finality of the task lends a new quality to the sounds. The tick of the punch is no longer just one of 30,000, but one of the final few hundred. The soft tap, tap, tap of the peening hammer is like a quiet countdown. He works his way down the seam, his movements as steady and unhurried as they were on the very first day. The fire in the hearth has burned down to a bed of soft, pulsing orange embers, casting a warm, gentle glow over the entire scene. The world outside the forge is silent, surrendering to the deep peace of another night. There is only the sound of this final, quiet, creative act. He reaches the last dozen rings, the last foot of the seam. His movements are automatic. His mind is a perfect, calm blank. He is aware only of the feel of the pliers in his hand, the glint of the firelight on the metal, the soft, repeating sounds of his work. 10 rings left. He closes one. T-I-C-K. Tap, tap. 9 rings left. He closes another. The process is a slow, deliberate, and deeply peaceful march towards completion. 5 rings left. Each one is a small victory, a small step closer to the end of this monumental undertaking. 3, 2, and now he picks up the final ring. He holds it in his pliers. It is no different from the tens of thousands that have come before it. A small, humble, open loop of iron with 2 flattened ends. He looks at the final gap in the seam of the shirt. He carefully threads the final ring through the corresponding loops on either side, stitching the garment whole. He aligns the flattened ends one last time. He places his punch. He lifts his small hammer. For the last time, the sound of the punch echoes in the quiet forge. Tick. He reaches into the wooden bowl, which now holds only a few stray rivets, and picks out one of the last ones. He carefully inserts it. He moves the ring to the solid part of his anvil. He picks up his peening hammer. For the last time, he brings it down with a series of soft, precise taps. Tap, 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 and then silence. It is done. The shirt is finished. A year of Alaric's life, of his skill, of his breath and sweat and immense, unwavering patience, is now embodied in this single object lying before him. He stands up slowly, his back and fingers aching, his eyes tired from the strain of the close work. He steps back from the bench and just looks at the completed shirt of mail. It hangs on its wooden stand, catching the gentle, pulsing light of the embers. It seems to have a life of its own, a quiet, powerful presence in the room. It is a thing of brutal utility, and yet it is a thing of profound and intricate beauty. He reaches out and touches it. The metal is cool and smooth. He gathers a handful of the fabric in his great hand, and it flows and pools like a heavy liquid, a river of iron. He lifts it from the stand. The weight is immense, a solid, reassuring heft that speaks of the protection it will offer. He holds it up, and the entire garment shifts and slithers with a low, metallic, hissing sound, the sound of 30,000 solid rings moving in perfect unison. This is the sound of security. This is the sound of a portable fortress. This is the sound of a year of a man's life. And in this moment it is clear why it is worth more than a farm. A farm is a thing of seasons, of cycles of growth and harvest. But this is a concentration of time itself, a solid, wearable monument to thousands of hours of irreplaceable, skilled human labor. A deep, quiet feeling of satisfaction fills Alaric, a feeling so profound it is almost overwhelming. It is the peace that comes only with the completion of a great and difficult work. He hangs the finished shirt carefully on a strong iron hook on the wall, where it will wait for the knight who commissioned it. Its role in the story of its creation is over. Its role as a protector is yet to begin. For now it will simply be a silent, glittering presence in the dark forge. And for Alaric, his monumental task is over. The pressure, the focus, the endless repetition is finally at an end. All that is left is the quiet, gentle work of cleaning up, and then a long and well-deserved rest. He begins, as always, with the cleaning of his tools. He carefully wipes down each tiny hammer, each delicate punch, each pair of pliers, and places them back in their designated spots in his tool chest. The sounds are soft and final. The click of a tool being placed on wood, the soft scrape of a cloth wiping steel. He gathers the few remaining rivets and unused rings and places them in a small pouch to be used for future repairs. He sweeps the floor around his workbench, the soft swoosh of his twig broom gathering the tiny metal filings and dust of his work. He is bringing his world back into a state of order and rest. He is closing a chapter. These quiet, methodical actions are a signal to his own mind that the work is over, that it is time to let go. Finally, he turns to the hearth. The fire that has been his constant companion for this entire journey, that has heated the iron, softened the wire, and warmed his workshop, is now little more than a bed of softly glowing, gray-ashed embers. He takes his shovel and carefully banks the remaining embers, covering them with ash, putting the fire to sleep until it is needed again. The last of the glowing light disappears, and the forge is plunged into a deep and comforting darkness. The only light now the soft, silvery moonlight, filtering through the high window. The air cools. The last of the work is done. The forge is at peace. Alaric stands for a moment in the center of the silent, dark room. He can feel the exhaustion in every fiber of his being. It is a weariness that goes beyond muscle and bone, a deep, cellular fatigue that comes from a year of unwavering focus. He walks slowly to the doorway of his small sleeping chamber, pushes aside the heavy woolen blanket, and steps inside. He removes his work clothes and sinks onto his simple straw pallet. He does not toss and turn. He does not wrestle with his thoughts. His mind is as quiet and as still as the sleeping forge. He pulls a rough woolen blanket over himself, and his body, so long held in a state of tension and focus, finally, completely lets go. He falls instantly into a sleep so deep and so profound, it is as if he is merged with the quiet, solid earth beneath him. It is the sleep of the truly weary, the restorative, dreamless sleep of a master who has completed his masterpiece. And now your own journey is complete as well. You have patiently followed this long and quiet story to its very end. And just like Alaric, your work is done. There is nothing left for you to do, nothing left for you to think about. You can now claim your own well-earned, peaceful rest. Feel the deep, heavy satisfaction of completion settling over you. Feel your own muscles letting go, your own mind growing quiet and still. You are safe in your own quiet space, and the whole world is asleep around you. Allow the silence of the forge to become your own silence. Allow the armorer's deep, profound rest to become your own. There is only peace now, only stillness, only the gentle, quiet, and wonderful invitation to sleep, to sleep, to sleep.